I stood up from the dinner table, my voice low but firm. Everyone turned toward me. Mom had just blown out her birthday candles when I said, "Melissa, where's Dad's money?" The room froze. Not a clink, not a breath. Melissa blinked, then smirked. "Gave it to me," she said. "For my business." Like that explained everything. But it didn't, because that money, 75,000 cents, was meant for my daughter, Sophie's college fund. Dad promised me dozens of times, even in the hospital bed, "Make sure Sophie gets her degree, Beth. That's what it's for." And then weeks before he passed, it was gone, transferred to Melissa. No explanation, no discussion, no goodbye. I stayed quiet for months. I tried to believe her, but then the car showed up. Then the house renovations, and the lies stopped making sense. That night, I confronted her, and what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my family. Is my mom started to cry. Have you ever been betrayed by your own sister? Would you speak up at the risk of tearing your family apart? Let me know in the comments, because this isn't just about money. It's about silence and the price we pay for keeping it. And don't forget to subscribe to Outlaw Alley for real stories of betrayal, justice, and the truth that refuses to stay buried. My name is Elizabeth Harmon. Most people just call me Beth. I'm 48 years old, a second grade teacher from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and until a few months ago, I thought I had a pretty decent grip on life. As a widow, my husband, Aaron, passed away when our daughter Sophie was only 9. He was the love of my life. Cancer took him fast. Since then, I've done everything I could to raise Sophie on my own. Teaching during the day, grading papers at night, pinching every penny, saving every tax refund, just to make sure she'd get the future we both dreamed of. The only safety net I thought I still had was my dad. My father, Richard Harmon, was a quiet, steady kind of man. He worked 35 years as a freight supervisor for the Union Pacific Railroad, never missed a day unless it involved one of his daughters. He wasn't rich, but he was disciplined. He saved his entire life. He had one promise for me, one I heard more times than I can count. "Beth, when the time comes, Sophie's college will be covered. That's what I'm putting it away for. You just focus on being her mom." He meant it. I believed him. Especially near the end, when he was in and out of the hospital. Even when he could barely eat, he'd ask me, "You applied for FAFSA yet?" That was his way of saying, "I've got your back." And then he was gone. It happened fast. The doctors called it congestive heart failure brought on by chemo complications. One moment he was asking for chocolate pudding. The next, he was unconscious. He passed in his sleep, holding my hand. I didn't cry at first. I just went numb. My sister, Melissa, handled the funeral arrangements, something she insisted on. I was too broken to argue. I didn't even question it. When she told me she had already spoken to Dad's bank and things were all taken care of, at the time I thought that meant logistics. I assumed, stupidly, that everything was still the way Dad intended. But a few weeks later, I got a call from the bank myself. I was trying to set up a college savings transfer account for Sophie when the representative paused. "I'm sorry," she said. "That savings account was closed last month. It was fully transferred to a Melissa Harmon." I thought it was a mistake, some weird paperwork fluke, until Melissa admitted it outright. "Dad changed his mind, Beth," she said. "He knew my business was about to take off. He wanted me to have a shot at something bigger." Her tone was calm, like she was explaining a weather report. I was stunned. Melissa had always been the golden child, younger than me by 6 years, pretty, charismatic, but chaotic. One failed art studio, one half-baked skincare line, a dozen maxed out credit cards. Dad bailed her out at least 3 times, but he never said he'd give her everything, especially not Sophie's money. Still, I had no proof. Just a sister who said Dad gave it to me and a bank that had already closed the account. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But then came the car, the house renovations, the cryptic Facebook posts about big things coming. Meanwhile, Sophie was working part-time at a bookstore just to help buy her own textbooks. I kept my mouth shut for months, not because I forgave, but because I wasn't ready to lose the rest of the family. I told myself maybe Melissa was telling the truth. Maybe Dad had changed his mind. But every time I looked at my daughter, I felt that weight in my chest again. It wasn't about the money. It was about betrayal. And eventually, that weight became too heavy to carry. So when Mom invited us all to her 70th birthday dinner, I decided to stop pretending. It was time someone told the truth. I told myself I'd stay calm, that if I just kept the peace, the truth would find its way out. Eventually. But peace is a liar when silence protects the wrong people. I tried to brush it off, focused on teaching, on Sophie. She got accepted into the University of Wisconsin with a partial scholarship, and we were both thrilled. But deep down, I knew the numbers didn't add up. Without that $75,000, 0 cents, she'd need to take out student loans for at least 2 years. And that wasn't what my father wanted, not when he'd saved every cent for her future. Meanwhile, Melissa was thriving. Within a few weeks of Dad's funeral, she posted photos of her kitchen being remodeled. Quartz countertops, new appliances, that open concept look she used to drool over on HG. Then came the car, a white Tesla, not leased, purchased outright. She smiled in every photo, captioned everything with hard work pays off and manifesting my dreams. No mention of Dad. No acknowledgement of the money that wasn't hers to begin with. I tried to confront her privately. I texted, "Hey, can we talk about the account? I thought that was set aside for Sophie." She replied in less than 5 minutes. "Beth, we already talked about this. I'm sorry if you misunderstood, but Dad made that decision. End of story." I stared at the message for a long time. Misunderstood. She was gaslighting me. And the worst part, I started to question myself. Maybe Dad had changed his mind. Maybe he did think helping Melissa's business was more important than his granddaughter's tuition. Maybe grief was making me paranoid. But then I overheard something that shattered those doubts. It was at Mom's house, about 2 weeks before the birthday dinner. We were both in the kitchen. Melissa was helping Mom arrange flower centerpieces. I came in from the hallway just as she said, "Honestly, I thought Beth would have forgotten about it by now. It's not like Sophie's going to Harvard." I stopped dead in my tracks. Melissa didn't know I was there. She laughed, and Mom didn't say a word. That laugh, that casual cruelty, something in me snapped. This wasn't just selfishness. This was arrogance. She knew what she'd done. And worse, she thought I was too weak to fight back. I drove home shaking. For days, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Dad's voice in my head, telling me again and again, "Sophie's future matters, Beth. You make sure she's taken care of." So I pulled out the envelope, the last birthday card Dad gave me just 6 months before he died. I kept it in my nightstand, unopened, since the funeral. Inside, in his shaky handwriting, were the words, "To my strong girl, I may not have much, but what I do have, I leave to you and Sophie. Use it wisely, you've earned it. Love, Dad." I cried for an hour. Then I made a decision. No more silence. No more pretending. No more tiptoeing around a sister who weaponized charm to cover her betrayal. When Mom texted about the birthday dinner, I texted back, "I'll be there." But this time, I wasn't coming as the quiet daughter. I wasn't coming to sit politely and smile for family photos. I was coming for answers. I didn't know what Mom would say. I didn't know if anyone else even cared. But I did know one thing. That dinner would be the end of pretending, one way or another. The truth was going to the table with me. The night of Mom's birthday dinner, I felt like I was walking into a battlefield dressed as a daughter. I wore a simple navy dress, nothing flashy, no makeup, just a little lip balm. Melissa showed up 20 minutes late in a silk jumpsuit and heels that probably cost more than my entire week's paycheck. She swept into the dining room like she owned it, kissing cheeks, laughing loud, giving Mom a spa day gift card wrapped in gold ribbon. People clapped. I sat in the corner, quiet, watching. Dinner was served. Roast beef, green beans, scalloped potatoes, Mom's favorites. Everyone chatted about promotions, house renovations, vacation plans. No one asked how Sophie was doing in school. No one asked if I was okay. I smiled through it. I waited. Then came dessert. A pink frosted cake with Happy 70th Ellen piped in cursive. Candles flickered. Mom made her wish and blew them out. That's when I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. Forced growths? Conversations died. I looked straight at Melissa. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She tilted her head, smirking. "Sure, Beth, what's up? Where is Dad's money?" The silence after that was sharp enough to slice the cake. Melissa blinked, then laughed, nervously trying to play it off. "Oh God, we're really doing this now at Mom's birthday?" I didn't flinch. "Yes, right now, because I've kept quiet for long enough. Dad told me that money was for Sophie's college. He promised me, and days before he died, it was gone. Transferred to you, and all you've said since then is he changed his mind. So I'm asking, again, where's the money?" Melissa crossed her arms, her voice hardened. "I already told you. You made his choice. You're just bitter because he loved me more." The room stirred. A cousin coughed. An aunt shifted in her seat. Before I could reply, Mom started crying, not sniffling, not quietly wiping a tear. She broke down. Her shoulders shook. She covered her face with both hands. And then, between sobs, she said words that no one at that table expected. She manipulated him. The words came out like broken glass. It was on morphine. He wasn't thinking straight. I told her to wait, but she brought the forms anyway. My heart stopped. Melissa went pale. "Mom, don't," she hissed. But it was too late. Ellen looked up at me, eyes red, voice shaking. "Your father didn't know what he was signing, Beth. He was so tired, so confused." And she stood there, holding the pen, smiling at him, saying, "It's just a backup form, Daddy, for the business. You don't even have to read it." I backed away from the table. My legs went numb. For months, I thought I was crazy. For months, I told myself maybe it was just grief making me doubt. But here it was, the truth, laid bare in front of everyone. Melissa stood frozen. Then she scoffed, like none of this mattered. "Oh, please, he wasn't that out of it. He knew what he wanted." Mom snapped. "No, he didn't. You took advantage of him. And I let it happen." The room was dead quiet. No one touched their cake. No one moved. My uncle reached for Mom's hand. My aunt stared at Melissa like she didn't recognize her. And me, I just stood there, heart pounding, tears stinging my eyes, realizing the family I thought I knew was gone. Melissa grabbed her bag. "You're all insane. This is ridiculous." She walked out without looking back. And in that moment, I knew nothing would ever be the same. I didn't sleep that night, not even a minute. I kept replaying my mother's words in my head over and over again. She manipulated him. He didn't know what he was signing. The truth was finally out, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like someone had opened a locked door inside me, and behind it was a flood I wasn't ready for. Grief, rage, guilt for staying silent so long, but one feeling rose above all the others. Clarity. I couldn't undo what Melissa had done, but I could make sure she didn't get to walk away from it smiling. So the next morning, I called a lawyer. His name was David Kaplan, a probate and elder abuse attorney recommended by a fellow teacher who'd gone through a similar case with her aunt. I showed up at his office with a folder of documents, Dad's bank statements, texts from Melissa, photos of her Tesla and Renovations, even Sophie's acceptance letters. I told him everything, from the morphine to the birthday dinner meltdown. He didn't say much at first, just listened, took notes, then leaned back in his chair and said, "You have a case. It's not bulletproof, but with your mother's testimony and the timing of that account transfer, there's enough to raise serious legal concerns." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. He continued, "If your father was cognitively impaired and Melissa coerced him into signing something, especially under medication, that's called undue influence, and it's legally actionable." It was the first time someone had said it out loud. What she did wasn't just cruel, it was illegal. But then came the hard part. He explained that taking this to court would be expensive, public, and messy. It could take months, maybe even a year. Sophie's financial aid deadlines were coming up fast. "You need to ask yourself what justice looks like to you," he said. "Is it punishment or is it resolution?" I didn't answer right away. But that night, after Sophie came home from work, exhausted, and still managed to make dinner for the both of us, I knew what I wanted. Resolution, restitution, a clean break. So I wrote Melissa an email. Simple, direct, no emotion. The subject line, "You have 48 hours. Melissa, based on what Mom revealed at dinner, I've consulted with a lawyer. We have enough to pursue a civil case for undue influence and fraudulent transfer of assets. This would include subpoenas, testimony, and a full review of Dad's medical records. I don't want to put Mom through that. I don't want to put Sophie through that. But I will, unless you transfer back the $75,000 0 cents within 48 hours. After that, we are done. No contact, no forgiveness, no family. Your choice." I hovered over the send button for 5 full minutes. Then I clicked. The wait was excruciating. No reply the first day. Nothing the next morning either. And then, at exactly 3:04 p.m. on the second day, my phone buzzed. "Incoming wire transfer $75,000 0 cents. Sender, Melissa Harmon." No subject, no apology, just a separate text that read, "Happy now?" I stared at those 2 words for a long time. There was no satisfaction in them, no peace, but there was relief. I forwarded the funds to Sophie's college savings account that same afternoon. And then I blocked Melissa's number. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of wine, not to celebrate, but to grieve for the sister I lost, for the father I couldn't protect, and for the illusion that family always means loyalty After the money hit my account, you'd think I would have felt triumphant. But the truth is, I cried, not because I was sad, not because I was relieved, but because it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a funeral, the kind where no one brings flowers, where no one says goodbye, just quiet acceptance that something once sacred has died. Sophie didn't know the full story. I'd protected her from it. All she knew was that her college fund had suddenly appeared fully funded. She hugged me that night and said, "Thank you, Mom. Grandpa would have been proud." I swallowed hard and nodded because I couldn't bear to tell her the truth just yet, that her future came at the cost of a broken family. The fallout happened fast. Word spread across the family like wildfire. I didn't say a word to anyone, but someone, maybe Mom, must have told them what really happened. Aunt Denise unfriended Melissa on Facebook. Uncle Jerry left a group chat with no explanation. Cousin Mark, who had always idolized Melissa, called me just to say, "I'm sorry, I had no idea." Melissa? She went silent. No angry emails. No apology. No denial. Just silence. Until one Saturday morning, 3 weeks later, she showed up at Mom's house unannounced. I was there dropping off groceries. She walked in like a ghost. No makeup, hair tied back, eyes sunken like she hadn't slept. We locked eyes for the first time since the dinner. "Yes," she said, voice low. "Can we talk?" Then I answered. Mom looked at us both, then whispered, "Maybe this is overdue." So we sat on the same worn-out couch we'd fought over as kids. Melissa stared at her hands, fidgeted with a frayed thread on her sleeve, then finally spoke. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I stayed quiet. I was drowning. I thought if I could get that business off the ground, I could pay you back. I really did. I looked at her, not with hate, and not with forgiveness, just with the clarity that comes when the fog finally lifts. You didn't just steal money, Melissa. You stole trust. And you used Dad's dying days to do it. Her eyes welled up. I know. And I can't undo it. But I want to fix what I can. If you'll let me. Mom watched us both, silent but hopeful. I took a long breath. I'm not ready to forgive you. And I don't think I'll ever forget what you did. But if you want to be part of this family again, you're going to have to work for it. I gave her one condition. Family therapy, once a week. No excuses. No skipping. She agreed. And for the next year, we sat across from each other in a tiny therapist's office. We unpacked decades of resentment. Mom joined some sessions too. We cried. We yelled. Sometimes we said nothing at all. But slowly, walls began to crack. Melissa stopped pretending, stopped deflecting, started listening, and I learned how to set boundaries without burning the whole house down. We're not close, like sisters on TV, but we're trying. We send each other birthday cards now. We exchange texts on holidays. And last month, when Sophie sent out her graduation announcements, Melissa was the first to RSVP. She even wrote a check for a modest amount, tucked inside a card that said, "I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry." That was the first time she ever put it in writing. And maybe that's what healing looks like sometimes. Not a perfect ending, but a fragile beginning. Sophie graduated last spring, top of her class, double major in education and environmental science. She wore Dad's old railroad pin on her stole, just like I did when I got my teaching license. When she stepped across that stage, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I didn't even know I'd been carrying. I did it. We did it, even without him, even with everything that tried to pull us apart. After the ceremony, Melissa stood off to the side, not in the family photo, not trying to insert herself, just present. She gave Sophie a quiet hug. No speeches, no big gestures, just whispered, "Your mom fought hard for this. Never forget that." Later that evening, Mom and I sat on the porch. She held my hand, tears glistening in her eyes. "I should have spoken up sooner," she said. "I thought staying silent would keep the family together, but all it did was let the wrong things grow." I squeezed her fingers. "You told the truth when it mattered most, Mom. That's what saved us." Because here's what I've learned. Sometimes justice isn't served in a courtroom. It's served in quiet moments, in boundaries, in truth spoken out loud when it's hardest to say. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and family doesn't mean blind loyalty. It means showing up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. What did you think of this story? If you were in my shoes, would you have taken Melissa to court or done what I did? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Outlaw Alley for more real-life stories of betrayal, healing, and the strength it takes to choose yourself.